I'll tell you like which things will not work without license. And for this, if you look at, I'll be using this Windows machine for test testing purposes. Okay, and I have some minor base. Hello. From today morning, everything is like low. Like the 4G signal is low, the home Wi-Fi network is slow. I don't know what's the reason. I hope it's better now. Okay. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So I have some basic configuration which I have already done in this. Okay. Which we discussed. Okay. So what I have here is I have the interfaces configured. I have the NAT policy there, even a security policy to allow people to go out. Okay. So as you can see, this is my inside zone, and Ethernet 1/2 is my outside zone here. Okay. And we have security policy allowing traffic to go from inside to outside so that people can access internet. And then we have this NAT policy. Okay, so that NAT policy allows them to access internet again. Okay. So let me give you a basic idea when you are going to deploy it in a virtual machine. When you're going to deploy Palo Alto in a virtual machine, see whether you deploy it in any virtualization system. Okay, when you deploy it, if you look at the network cards, okay, I'm just opening up the VMware settings for this virtual machine. What you see there is like multiple network adapters, right, which are working for different things. So the first network adapter that you will see in any virtualization environment, whether it's VMware, whether it's Hyper-V or any other, okay, the first adapter is the network adapter or is the management interface network interface card. Okay, so if you look at it, I have bridged it to my physical network. Okay, so I've bridged it to the my home network, because of which the IP address on the management interface is also from the home network. That's 192.168.0.23, which I was allocated to it by my home route. Okay, so that's the that's the management interface. Okay. Second, what you have here is this is what will be the network adapter 2 will be actually the Ethernet 1/1. Okay, and then we have Ethernet 1/2, and likewise, if you add more network cards into it, okay, I don't have it here much, but uh, this will be Ethernet 1/2, 1/3, 4, 5, likewise it goes on. Okay. So what you see here is like I have this connected to a VMnet. Okay. If you don't know what VMnet is, think of it as simply like when you use virtualization, you create a subnet. Okay, you create a network which you are going to use, and if two network interfaces card are in the same VMnet, they are in the same subnet. Okay, so like if you look at this, my Ethernet 1/1 is part of VMnet 1. Okay, on this I have decided that I'll give that 10.0.1.0 subnet. Okay, and if I go to this other machine, which is the Windows 7 machine, if you look at the settings of that, it just has one network card. Okay, but for that also I'll connect it to VMnet 1. Okay, so since I've connected it to VMnet 1, what happens here is now this will be uh, you know it's like I've made it part of uh, this network. Okay, this subnetwork. Okay, so in the subnet, this PC is obviously going to act as a host, and for this, okay, I think I had to click OK. Sorry, change it. Okay, fine. On Palo Alto, same this net one will be acting as a the default gateway in that subnet, which will be allowing it to go out further. Okay. If you see the network adapter 3 here, Ethernet 1/2. Okay, this will be Ethernet 1/1, 1/2, and likewise. So Ethernet 1/2 I have bridged again to my physical network because that's what I want to use as an outside interface to connect to the internet. So my Windows 7 machine comes into this interface and it goes out this interface. Okay, and this is where we can decide policies for like this interface is an inside zone, this is an outside zone. Okay, and likewise if you look at it here, that's how I have configured the interfaces like Ethernet 1/1. I've given the subnet 10.0.1.1, which is the default gateway for this Windows machine. Okay, I think if you look at IP config, okay, we don't have an IP address on network card. Let me give that. DNS we are not going to use right away, but later when we use, so I'm giving for that. Okay, so if you check, I have on my Windows machine IP address of 10.0.1.11. Okay, default gateway is 10.0.1.1. Okay, now you saw me changing these settings directly and not restarting the virtual machine. It doesn't work with every virtual machine. It works with Windows if you have VMware tools installed, but um, if if you change the VMnet or network adapter and if it is not working, consider restarting a machine if you are using something else. Depends on virtual machine to virtual machine. I'll not go into for the VMware related thing. So I'm able to ping my gateway, okay, which is basically this IP address, okay. And if I even try to ping google.com, it's going to work. The reason for that is we have NAT policy here, which is translating us, okay, which is translating us for whole of this subnet with the IP on the outside interface to go out, okay. Also, I have the virtual router configured with default route pointing to the outside interface. These are the things which you have seen already. Okay, I'm just giving an overview like what's the base configuration. Okay, so this default route is there, and in the security policy also I have a rule allowing traffic to go from inside to outside. That's why we have this. It counts increasing each time there's a ping. So that's pretty much the base configuration that we have. Okay, you see these counts increasing. Okay, fine. So I hope you got like how I've you know integrated this Windows machine with the Palo Alto to go out. Now let's come back to Palo Alto things and start with content ID. And if you want to deploy, if you are very good at VMware, I can give you the virtual machine of Palo Alto, which you can run in VMware Workstation. But again, this virtual machine consumes like 6.5 GB for itself plus 2 cores. So you need this much for it to work properly. Then you need some more RAM for Windows 7 along with your host operating system. Okay, so let's start with content ID. Now, from traffic processing point of view, we look at it till now. We had focused more on NAT policy evaluation, security policy check, NAT applied or not. Okay, but now our focus is more on this thing. Okay, app ID we already saw. So first thing first, I'll clarify. Okay, a lot of people have doubts in their mind, and sometimes people use these words interchangeably: security policy and security profile. Okay, be very clear about it. These are two different things. Okay, don't use these words interchangeably, casually. Being a security engineer, Palo Alto security engineer, you can't do that. Okay? Security policy is what we just saw, that source zone inside, destination zone outside, this thing. Okay, this is security policy. Okay, in which you specify match criteria, right? Which traffic I want to allow to go out, and then you specify an action whether I want to allow it or not allow it. Okay, that's security policy. So what is security profile? When we say content ID, okay, people sometimes think it must be just like security policy. Not exactly like that. Okay, what happens is content ID has different security profiles. Okay, like there is a security profile for antivirus. There is a security profile for file blocking. There is a security profile for URL filtering. There is a security profile for wildfire. So all the things, there's many other, okay, which I'll show you. But point is, like, for these things, we have these individual security profiles working for different things. Okay, fine. And what you do is, like, for this security profiles, you go to objects and you see these are the security profiles we have. Okay. So in these security profiles, you basically create them, and you also have default versions of most of them. Okay, like I suppose I click on antivirus, you see there is a predefined default version. I have not touched this. Okay, it's a predefined profile, not created by me. Okay, anti-spyware, there are two predefined. Okay, vulnerability protection, there is predefined. URL filtering, predefined. So some of them are having predefined options. Okay, most of them you should say. Okay, but there are some which we don't have, like data filtering. There's not any option for that. Okay, DOS protection, there is no option for that. So what you do is you create these security profiles. Okay, and once you are confident enough that okay, I've created it and modified whatever I wanted, you go to this policies, open a security policy in which you want them applied, go to the actions tab, and here you select profiles, and this is where you mention all these profiles. Okay, so did you get the point? There's a very big difference between a security policy rule compared to a security profile. Okay, so once you have made them, you can go ahead and select them from the drop down. Like default ones are already there, you can select and apply them. Okay, and this is what we are going to take time in explaining today, maybe tomorrow as well. Okay, so got the point? Like there's a difference between security profile and security policy. Security profile are content ID related stuff, individual these profiles, which you apply in a security policy rule. Okay. So clear on this? Okay. So whenever I say, now start listening to me carefully. Like whenever I say security profile, whenever I say security policy, be clear on if you are doubtful, ask me whether I'm talking about security policy or profile. Although I'll try to highlight it while talking. Okay. Uh, Content ID. See, there is threat prevention engine and policies to inspect and control traffic that is traversing the firewall. So you see, content ID checks it for threats like viruses, spywares, okay, vulnerability exploits. Okay, so let's start with like, okay, what's a virus? Okay, it's something which does malicious activities, activities which maybe in the back end you don't want it to do. Okay, and maybe helps an attacker to gain access to something which you don't want to get as a user. Okay, compared to that, spyware is a little bit different. Okay, spyware is used to do spying related stuff. Like for example, uh, you can remotely get access of somebody's webcam. Okay, maybe taking screenshots at some intervals, maybe doing key logging. Okay, so that's what a spyware does. Okay, spyware stays on you. Okay, tries to collect this information with the user is trying to enter. Both are bad, but there's a difference in their working. Okay, a virus is not concerned about gathering this information, taking turning on webcam, taking images, or capturing your screen captures. Not like, okay, also we have web filtering. We can decide which URLs we allow people to go to. Okay, And then we can have data filtering, in which we decide which data we don't want to be allowed to go here or there. Like, if suppose our company has our customers' credit card information, we don't want that we exfiltrate. Okay. Okay. Similarly, if we have people's social security numbers, okay, kind of like the Aadhaar card of US, okay, not exactly, but like, we can decide which file types are allowed to upload or download, okay, and block certain. So all of this is part of content ID. And if you try to go and find an option of content ID that I'll have one tab where everything will be applied of content ID, they don't have it. You define these individual things in a security profile and apply them in a security policy. Okay. So you can scan network traffic for all these things. Okay. Using content ID. So you can detect and block a wide range of threats depending upon what you want. Okay, you can limit unauthorized data transfer, uh, like non-work related web surfing, like people are watching Netflix, Amazon Prime Video. We don't want that. Okay? Similarly, we don't want people to be doing also the detection of content ID is stream based, not file based for real time performance. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, a lot of times a lot of devices have this in them, that the scanning is file based. Okay, what's the difference? Let's look at it this diagrammatically. See, if the scanning is file based, suppose somebody requests a file. Okay, somebody tries to download a file, then what happens is your device, your security device, okay, it's going to, like, suppose a PC requests that I want to download a file. Okay, now what will happen is, like, your security device, whatever firewall or whatever device you are using, that device will request that file in a file based scanning. Okay, the security device will request that file and it will download that whole file, then scan it, and if it finds right, then deliver the content. Okay, so problem with this is, if it is buffering all the file and then like keeping it with itself and then scanning it and then delivering it, there will be more time involved, there will be more delay in downloading any file. Okay, whereas compared to this, in a stream based scanning, what happens is, as soon as somebody starts requesting a file and the file starts getting delivered to firewall, it starts the scan. Okay, and when it is scanning, okay, uh, and it has scanned a sufficient, like, some percentage of the content, it will start deliver the content. Okay, and the way it works is like, you scan and you deliver, you scan and you deliver individual packets. Okay, so if it finds something malicious somewhere, it can block this device from downloading it further, which basically doesn't allow the person to access it. Okay, got the point? Like, it's scanning, and that's parts, small parts, like it starts scanning from the first packet and it starts delivering it after it has buffered enough packets. okay, but it doesn't wait for the full file to be downloaded. The benefit of this stream-based scanning is your device or your end device and user won't experience a great amount of delay. Okay. So uniform signature engine scans are there for broad range of threats in a single pass. Okay. Vulnerability, viruses, spyware, all of this is scanned. Okay. And then it blocks transfer of sensitive data and file transfers by type as well as malicious content. It can look for credit card number information, social security number patterns. Okay. And also looks into file to determine type, not extension based. Okay. What you mean by that is like suppose, okay, uh, the file blocking things are extension based. Okay. Now problem with that extension based scanning is, suppose you have said that we'll not allow XML based files. Okay. I'll just show you what XML looks like if you have not seen. I think most of the people have seen now, but maybe okay, we have something like this. Okay. Now, my point here is like, generally it's used for some data serialization, and maybe that, maybe it could be used by some attacker to maliciously, send something which we don't want. Okay. And we don't want this XML to be downloaded for normal people, not for programmers, but like, for normal people inside of our. I don't mean that programmers are abnormal in any way. Okay. Like, for other people, like HR, what is an HR trying to download an XML file for? Okay. So what you can do is, suppose we have said that XML files will be blocked. Okay. Now, if suppose somebody uh, copies this XML and pastes it in a Word file, okay, in a .doc file, okay, and now if he is allowed to download, he can easily, uh, bypass the firewall if it is going to check based on extension, because now the extension will be .doc, right? It will not be .xml. So we don't want that. Okay. Because of that, Palo Alto looks into the file. So it scans the file, looks at the content of the file. So even this file, that this DOC file, will be considered for blocking because it contains the XML content. So it looks into the file to determine the type, not based on extension. Or also sometimes what people do is, like, suppose we have allowed to download JPG, they'll just rename things and modify them. Maybe there's a .xml file, maybe they'll just rename it to .jpg so that it's allowed to download. It still won't be downloaded because Palo Alto scans and determines the file type based on the contents of the file. Okay. Fine. So you can have web filtering enabled via the URL database, okay, which scans for around 20 million URLs, more than that, because every day people are having more and more new websites. Okay, you can scan around 1,000 URLs per second. Okay, and there is a dynamic database which adapts to local, regional, or industry-focused surfing patterns. So the updates are based on where your firewall is, like, because sometimes, like, uh, if you talk about an Asia Pacific region, okay, uh, we might open some websites which will be totally meaningless for more people in US. Okay, like maybe we open some websites in Hindi. Okay, so and the database is focused based on region. Okay. Okay. So now, how does security policy work along with the security profile? Okay. Now see, security profiles basically provide additional security checks on allowed traffic. Now pay attention on allowed traffic. Okay. What you mean by that is, suppose I have a security policy which has this thing as deny. Okay. If the action is deny, whether you define profiles here or not define the profiles, it won't matter. See, check this out. Like, suppose you are blocking traffic going from inside to outside destination. If you are blocking, if you are denying, if you are dropping that traffic, doesn't make any sense to check it whether it has viruses, which URL the person is going to, which file type you are trying to download. It doesn't make any sense, right? So if you have the action as blocking, whether you have deny or drop or reset client server, both, all of these are blocking. If you have anything except allow, if you have anything except allow, then these profiles don't have any effect. Okay, so these profiles have only an effect if your security policy action is allow. Okay. Okay, so whatever content is, if your security policy rule is blocking it, you don't need to further check it for any security profile. If your security policy rule is allowing it, then you need to check it for viruses, spyware, exploits, and sensitive data and all this. Okay, and also these security profiles have an action to specify. Okay, what I mean by that is, like, suppose in the security policy rule you say allow. Okay, but the URL finds that the website that you are trying to go is malicious, and for that we have an action of block here. Okay, so your traffic will be blocked. Okay, so your security profile action also matters. Okay, there are different security profile actions in different options. Okay, so these are all the security profile types, like I've already shown you that we have, and these are some of the description. I think anti-spyware, antivirus, vulnerability protection. Okay, let me tell you what is that. Basically, every software has some form of vulnerability. They keep on rolling out software's new version and fix a lot of vulnerabilities and bugs. So vulnerability protection profiles basically protect you from somebody trying to use a vulnerability of a software to attack you. Okay, like I'll give you an example. Okay, like suppose Adobe Reader is a software which is very commonly used for reading PDFs. Okay, suppose Adobe Reader has a vulnerability because of which maybe it allows the user to maybe make modification in the Windows registry. Okay, if I open a PDF. Now, we don't want those kind of vulnerabilities to be exploited by attacker. Okay, so vulnerability protection protects you against the common known vulnerabilities. Okay, in different software. Okay. See, Windows Defender is an endpoint security solution. It's not a network security solution. Okay. It's think of it as like this. Okay. Suppose, okay. Suppose this is a police station. Okay. Okay. At any police station, if you go, at entry of it, you will find some people guarding the police station. Okay. Okay. Now all the people here inside, most of them, I'll say, they know how to fire guns, they know how to protect themselves and protect others, right? Then what's the use of having these people here? Okay. So this is like, defender. But this is what the job of firewall is. You get the point? Defender is like, running at the end point. If defender catches something, then that means that your firewall didn't catch it and, it was allowed to reach the end point. I hope you got like what's no, see, all of that is there. Okay. It's not just that. Like, see, you have an antivirus solution on the endpoint. Then what is the benefit of having an antivirus solution on the firewall? The benefit is if virus is stopped right here, it's better than it is being stopped here on the endpoint. Right? Are you getting my point?
Hello?
It's better that the virus doesn't get delivered to the endpoint. Okay. I'm not saying like if you have a next generation firewall, throw away the endpoint security solution. But the point is, it's better to not deliver something malicious rather than deliver it and let the endpoint security take care of it. Okay. This
Hello?
works good for, home users. Okay. But sometimes may not work very well for the corporate users. Somebody else also had a question.
Yeah, for DDoS attacks, I have seen like multiple companies are using F5.
See, there are many options. In fact, I'll tell you, whatever device you use, okay, for preventing the DOS attack, okay, sometimes it's better to use a cloud-based service for preventing DDoS attack. Cloudflare and a lot of these companies provide that. Okay, so it depends on what you are trying to protect, where it is. Okay, so many companies have an overlapping solution. Okay, fine. So it's like I tell people like, security is done in layers. Like you have multiple layers of security so that, even if somebody penetrates one thing, they are not allowed to do that malicious activity. So same thing is applicable here. If we block something at network level, it's better than, allowing it to reach the endpoint protection level. Okay. So these we discussed. Now, obviously, URL filtering blocks your web browsing, which websites you are allowed to browse, which you are not allowed to browse. File blocking allows which file upload or download is allowed or blocked. We can block people from downloading maybe exe files, okay, because we don't those exe files can have something malicious, okay. If they want a software, they could request it from the system admin people. Data filtering is what I told you, that for credit card, social security numbers, we don't want that to be exfiltrated, so you can block and identify specific patterns of data, okay. So like what Firewall will look at here is like, if there is a 100 credit card number information going in a stream of packets, okay, then somebody is trying to exfiltrate data from the company, right? Then we have Wildfire, which uploads the data, which is suspicious, which it is suspicious about, like maybe it's malware. It can forward that for Wildfire cloud analysis. Okay, we'll look at them individually. Okay, so like Shanti. Okay. So security profiles, like I told you, you make a security profile by going into the object, and then for some of them you can have packet capture enabled, okay. Benefit of that is like, maybe you want your forensic team, maybe your CHFI guys, okay, ethical hacking people or penetration testers, maybe you want them to analyze that file, what was being tried to download. Now if you enable packet capture, you can see it in the threads, in the logs, and for all the files that you have this icon, okay. This means that there was a packet capture done for that particular thread, okay. If you click here, you can see the contents of file, or you can export it and give it as a PCAP file to people for forensic analysis, okay. Like I told you that there are default profiles in all of them. Most of the times admin just clone the default profiles and use them in the security policy, okay. Reason for that is like, if you look at the default security profiles, I'll give you an example, okay. Like suppose let's talk about URL filtering. Now if you look at URL filtering, they have blocked certain categories of website in the predefined profile, which you will never want to allow in the corporate network. Like no company, until unless maybe we are a Colombian drug lord running the company, no company would want people to be allowed to access to drug and abuse websites, okay, or adult content websites, okay, or command and control traffic, command and control websites, okay. Okay, or gambling websites, okay. So these are some of the things, graveyard, hacking websites, okay. These are some of the things which most of the companies, malware, these things they would not want to allow. If they don't want to allow, if they want to allow, you can make a modification, but most of the times, you know, they have kept this according to the you know, general public requirement. No general public would want these websites to be allowed. So it's best to copy the rule, okay, and make a clone of the security profile and then apply it in the security policy. Okay. You cannot delete a profile that is used in a policy rule. That's obvious. Okay. If you have one of these profiles, whatever you have made in a security policy, you first need to get it removed from its use and then delete. See, if you have a security policy, you'll have to remove it before, you know, you try to delete, because it's like a reference in the database. Okay, like no, because disabling is still like having the rule in the database. Okay, it's like a reference point. Like in the security policy, it has a reference point that there is a profile in whatever ABCD. So you cannot delete it until you remove this reference. Now, the default antivirus security profile looks something like this. And if you see, people are not allowed to download virus files from HTTP. Okay, it will reset the connection. If they try to download from FTP, they are not allowed. It will reset the connection. And similarly for SMB. Okay. So, but for these SMTP, IMAP, and POP3, it is not resetting the connection. Okay. The reason for that is, in this case, it will be an email carrying a virus. Okay. If you reset the connection, and the source of that email will just keep on trying to send this email again and again and again and again and again if you keep resetting the connection. So most of the times what people do is, like in this scenario, if it is coming from SMTP, IMAP, or POP3, you just generate an alert on the firewall, and whatever Microsoft Exchange server or whatever email server you are using, that email server can utilize its endpoint protection solution to maybe, you know, classify that mail and block people from accessing that email. Okay. So these define the actions. Okay, and here you have the actions that will be taken. Here you have the wildfire action. Okay, like whether you want the submission to take place in the Palo Alto Network Cloud for that analysis or not. Okay. Now, if you create a new antivirus profile, okay, so you can have application exemptions. Okay, if you know that, you know, if you trust certain applications and you don't want them scanned for you know, these antivirus related things, you can add those, and those particular applications won't be scanned for viruses. Okay. Configuration is not that difficult. You create a profile, okay, and you apply. I'll just show you. For all of them, okay, the basic method remains same. Okay. So if I go to antivirus, I'll just I can clone this profile, okay, but even cloning doesn't matter much because we'll basically not modify much things in here. We don't want to have any application exception. Okay, so you see here we have default reset port for. Okay, you can have a packet capture enabled. If you check this checkbox, it's going to do a packet capture. So if you want to make modification, you can do, like, if you don't feel like comfortable with reset, you can have other actions. Okay? We'll look at that. So let me just quickly go and apply this default profile, okay, since we are not modifying it. So if I go to security policy, now this is antivirus is something which will not work without a license. You can apply the profile here, okay, but it will not work properly. It will not scan for viruses if it doesn't have license. Okay? Also, let me check the dynamic updates, whether they are latest or not. Okay. Just like where you went for app ID and threat updates, they just download, deliver it in one go. Okay. So I'll just go to device dynamic updates, and here let me click check now. Okay. So the one which we have is from 1st May, and after that there's a lot of updates. Let me just download and install it. Okay, so I'll click install. Okay, now how do you check it? Let it down, install. Okay. And you can also do this so that you don't have to worry about Okay. Similarly, I'll just click on wildfire update as well. Let me update all of these and schedule them. Okay. Fine. So I think we have it in the security policy. Let's commit the configuration. Okay. So that's how you configure it. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. Fine. So for this, what you have to do is for checking out antivirus. Okay. Uh, Go to EICAR website. Okay, and here you will find the option to download antivirus malware file. Now, if I go to download here, you see here they have uh, given you two options. One is using HTTP, another is using SSL and HTTPS. Okay. Now, if you click on these links, this is like one of the virus files. This is it in .text format. This is it in .zip format. This is it in a zip, another zip format. Okay. So since we have not enabled SSL decryption, okay, yet we will download it using this. Okay. So if you click on this link, you see virus spyware download block. So that means that our antivirus profile is working perfectly fine. Okay. Now, again, don't do this without license. Okay, this log will be generated in the threads. Okay, like I tried to download this earlier even. So you see here we have this log generated now that there was this particular address was trying to reach this destination address through web browsing. They were trying to download a virus file. Okay, so I downloaded it a couple of times. That's why it's generated some 3-4 logs. Okay, so you can click on this link and see the details of it. Okay, fine, clear. How to check it? How to test your antivirus? Fine. Okay. Now, we didn't enable packet capture. That's why you don't see the option of packet capture here. But if we had done it, this is one thing for which you might want to modify. Okay. Now, for us, actually, it doesn't matter much whether we are enabling packet capture or not, because I'll not go into that CHFI things to. Okay, let's open this website again, because sometimes it just caches it in browser the page. So okay, I think we should have the packet capture here in the monitor threads now. See, it's come 2 times. So if you click on here, you see the detail. If you click here, it will show you the packet capture here. Okay, and if you want to export it, you will click on it. Okay. We have tried to include the screenshots of it so that you don't have to worry about What does it look like in things? Okay.
Sudhanshu sir, if we enable the packet capture, will it impact the system performance?
Uh, it will not impact much system performance, but the thing is like it depends on actually organizational security, mindset. Like if you're a bank, sometimes for each and every threat they want to do a forensic analysis and figure out like who was trying to do what were they trying to do, and there's a detailed report and things like that. But if you are a regular organization, you might not have even the people who do forensic analysis. So it depends on organization to organization. Performance wise, it doesn't impact much. Okay.
Okay.
uh, okay, so like you can have although you if you do a lot of packet capturing and people are downloading viruses and stuff, your ssd of uh, Palo Alto should get filled up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So there are different actions in different profiles. Okay, like some of them have this default LO alert drop. Some of them are very easy to understand. Okay. But there are some other actions which you might take some time to understand. Okay, and not all of these actions that you see here in this slide are available in all the uh, you know all the security profiles. Okay, so basically just what we have tried to do is for all the different security profiles, whatever actions there are, we have tried to define all of the actions here. Okay. Like you saw in antivirus, there was no option of sinkhole, random early drop, or sin cookies, or block IP. Okay, so these are in some other security profiles. Okay, but this is just one page having all the actions, so you can read it from one place. Okay, so default specifies like whatever is the default action. Okay, like you saw for default is different for different things. Like for FTP, default was reset both, HTTP was default reset both, but for IMAP POP3 SMTP default was alert. So default means the default action. Okay, from default profile. LO will definitely allow it. Alert will just generate a log. Okay, which you can see in the thread. Okay, but not block it. Okay, if you select drop, it basically drops the application traffic. Okay, uh, reset client, it will reset the client side connection. For UDP, obviously the connection is dropped. There is no connection establishment. Okay, so basically all the packets are dropped. Reset server, the server side, uh, you know, connection will be dropped. Reset both the client, the initiator, and server, the responder, both sides the connection will be dropped. Now these options, okay, some of them are for DOS attack prevention. Okay, so with block IP, what you can have is you can block certain IP for certain time range if it is found to be attacking, okay, and trying to do a DOS attack. Okay, then there is sinkhole. Okay, sinkhole is where you basically let's leave the sinkhole for later. Okay, I'll just give you a brief. When firewall finds that somebody is trying to visit a malicious website, they redirect or they reply to their DNS query with a Palo Alto loopback IP, so that when they generate traffic, Palo Alto can create a threat log for that. Okay. If it doesn't make sense right now, just leave it. We are going to discuss these in very detail. Okay. Similarly, let's leave these four for future. Okay, because each of them is a little bit complicated. Before we talk about them, we have to talk about other security. Okay. So then you have anti-spyware security profile, okay, which obviously blocks you from downloading spywares. Okay. And again, you can clone. Okay. Okay. And make a new anti-spyware profile. You can also define a new rule. Okay. Defining threat capability and all. Now here the packet capture is a little bit different. If you see the packet capture, there is an option. Okay, these are the actions. Now here you see there is block IP, okay, which is new. So if somebody is generating some spyware related traffic, okay, their traffic will be blocked, their IP will be blocked, okay, from accessing that. If you look at the packet capture, okay, now in the packet capture options, you see there is disable, there is single packet capture, and there is extended capture. Now suppose you downloaded a spyware, okay, and now each key log that you do, okay, each key that you press is logged. Now extended capture will help us in capturing all the traffic related to that key logging, all the packets. A single packet will just allow us to capture the first packet and leave all of the rest packets as okay. Now okay, just wait, okay. I want to check something. Okay. So next, okay, if you want to test it, basically you can use the same EICR website. You won't be able to download. This is for both spyware and viruses. Okay, the same EICR website. There are many other websites which allow you to download a test file for viruses. You can try that as well. In fact, Baldev told me there was uh, hmm, test file here. Yeah. So I think it's not working because our firewall is blocking it. Now, this is from Fortinet, so I'm not really sure how good it works in Palo Alto, but like it's not allowing us to download the file. So let's not go into that. Okay, the first time I was testing it. It's best to test it from EICR website. Okay. Now in this entry spyware profile, if you look at this DNS signatures tab, okay, one is you can define rules. Another is if you go to DNS signatures tab, what you see here is you see the sinkhole IP address and stuff. Okay, what is this? See, basically, when somebody is trying to download or somebody is trying to access a malicious website, okay, what you do is you give them an IP, which can be your loopback IP, or by default, if you look at here, it's the Palo Alto sinkhole IP address that is given to that person for their DNS query. So suppose they do a DNS query for some malicious website, they'll be given this IP address in response to that DNS query. The benefit of that will be when they try to access this, their traffic will be blocked, but it can be utilized for further analysis into deciding what we, maybe if it is a new kind of thing, or maybe strengthen security. Okay, let me show you how it works. Okay, because we have a lot of details coming up. Okay, so you can add external dynamic lists as well in here. Okay, what is an external dynamic list? Lot of there are paid services as well as some free services. like they don't allow it in text file. Okay. What happens is like see here. You see, this is a text file, very large text file, right? Having all these malicious activities. Okay. Now, what you see is like what you can do is depending upon your like suppose I copy this. Okay, check this out. I'm copying this. One way to block malicious URLs is to manually put them into URL filtering. Okay. Another way is if you have a text file which has these details, like suppose I go ahead and copy this. I go to my Palo Alto. Okay. Now you see in anti-spyware there is two, default and strict. Let's clone the strict one. Okay. In here, see, you can add external dynamic list. Okay, I'll click add. I'll click external dynamic list. Okay. Now you can select, give it a name like whatever. Okay. Here you can specify the source. Okay. If you have hosted it somewhere where you want to have authentication, then you can also have authentication based on that. Okay, like you can have certificates or server authentication, but like for our case, I'm not doing anything like that. Now, what I'm saying is like, every hour, download this list and block people from accessing this list. All the websites that are in this, okay, like this is tourindia.in, or these are all malicious websites trying to do something bad to people. Okay, so what you can do is you can have this here. Okay. You can test your source URL. I was checking connectivity. Why is it so? Okay, let me check that. But do you get the point? Like my point here is, yeah, we'll check it. Okay, not a problem. But the point here is like you can add these kind of text lists. Okay, and there are paid services from many different providers. Okay, and it's not like only you need to pay for it and you need to get it outside of your organization always. Palo Alto has their DNS signatures, content updates, pre-built into this, through which they'll be blocking you from accessing those websites. Okay, and if you see, suppose somebody does a DNS query for website mentioned in this text file, they will be redirected to, they can be blocked, they can be replied with the sinkhole address. Okay, benefit of that is when they send the traffic, uh, that will be logged in the firewall. That way we can figure out who is the infected person. Okay, so also you can define the sinkhole IP address here. Either you can say use this sinkhole.paloaltonetworks.com. It resolves that and finds the IP address, or you can use the loopback IP for this. Okay. In no case the malicious URL will be allowed to be accessed. Okay, whether you select this or this doesn't matter. Okay. And obviously you have to go and apply this in the spyware profile. Okay. Okay. See, there's actually a proper format in which it is required. Okay, no, this is in another format. I don't think it will work. Let's check. Because there's a prescribed format for this. You cannot have like any format. Okay, let's modify this section dynamically. Actually, see, a lot of them are in different format. Like if you see this, this is a good format for Windows. If you update this in the host.txt file, but it's not that good a format for Palo Alto. Anyways, the way, okay, But then again, I'll have to post it somewhere. Give me a minute. Let me test.
Sudhanshu,
Yeah,
still you need to continue something, or is it
just give me 2 minutes. Actually, I
okay?
was trying to modify the format. Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So see, what I did was there is this website. I just Google searched it. Okay, this is the first time I'm doing it. I modified the text file. Okay, in this format. Okay, I removed that 127.0.0.1. Okay, and then I uploaded it here. Okay, because we wanted HTTP accessible. So I copied this URL. Okay, and pasted it here. Okay, and let's check the test source URL. It's accessible now. Okay, so if I click OK, now it will not give that warning which it was giving earlier, and you won't be able to visit any of these websites. Now I've not really opened it, so let me just stop screen share, try to open whether it is really opening what file. I don't want to open something for which you and me both are embarrassed for life. Okay. But actually it should not allow it to open. Okay, so in this, there was this website 2ofus.at. Okay, and you see, I'll just open it. I don't know what this is. Okay, some other language which I don't understand. So point is like it's opening here on my Windows 10. Okay, but if I go here on this Windows 7 host, and if I try to open this website, it will not allow me to open. Okay, why? Reason for that is Palo Alto from this text file now considers this to be a malicious URL. Okay, so if this is a malicious URL and it's not allowed to open, no, what happens is like when you send a DNS query for this and it goes through Palo Alto, you see here 2ofus.at in the threads, you find that this is a suspicious domain. Okay, so what action did it take? It took you to sinkhole. Clear? Okay, so I think we have tested now for spyware as well. Okay, so that's why it's not allowing us to open. Okay, actually what is happening is when you are trying to, from the Windows machine, when you are trying to open this website, it's replying with the sinkhole address, which is actually not going anywhere. Okay, clear on external dynamic list as well, like what it is. We'll discuss this in more detail later. Okay, but I think it's sufficient for spyware. Okay, so you can have your malicious domain here. You configure a. Okay, see, DNS sinkhole enables you to quickly identify infected hosts on the network. Okay, this is what literally a sinkhole is. Okay, but it's quite similar to what it is here. It operates similar to block action. So the original DNS query is never forwarded to the proper DNS server. Like in our case, the DNS query, like I told you, had to be forwarded where this to this destination address. Okay, so when it sent a DNS query to resolve this domain, okay, it responded. The firewall responded with the sinkhole address. Okay, by default, sinkhole IP address is a Palo Alto server. Okay, but you can change it to some other IP address. It should not be assigned to a real host, obviously, because we don't want the traffic to go anywhere. Okay. Now, if you are having your own DNS sinkhole address, then the DNS sinkhole address and client should be in different zones so that traffic is logged, because traffic is not logged for intra-zone traffic. Okay. Now, infected host can be identified from threat log, like I showed you, that you could easily now check and say, okay, you know, this guy must be infected with something. So, you know, let's check why is he going to this website? Okay. So this is what the sinkhole operation happens. Okay. See, you send a DNS query for malicious domain. Okay. And if the local DNS server is not able to resolve, it will send it to the firewall, through the firewall to, you know, the public DNS servers. Okay, here firewall is basically detecting from the external dynamic list or from Palo Alto's list that whatever this domain is, it's not genuine, it's a malicious DNS request. So what it is going to do is it's going to intercept this. Okay, since it figured out that this is a malicious, it's going to intercept and see it responded with a sinkhole address, whatever the sinkhole address is. Usually it will be a loopback address. Okay, 127.0.1, or it could be Palo Alto's server address. When it responds with the sinkhole address, that sinkhole address is forwarded to the host. Okay, and when the host tries to send a connection to this IP address which it was delivered in response to the DNS query, your record is logged in the firewall. Clear on how sinkhole works? Okay, so this is what happened in the backend when I tried to access that. Any doubts? Okay, now next there is a vulnerability protection profile, which frankly speaking, you know, if you want to go more into details of these things, then you should understand a lot of you know, EC Council stuff. Okay, like if you see every vulnerability in a software is assigned a CVE. Okay, common vulnerabilities and exposure. Okay, and like I've taken you to this website. There are many other websites which show you things like this, but let me show you what I'm going to tell you about, like vulnerabilities. Okay, like if you search CVE list. Okay, I'll just search for Windows 10. You see, in Windows 10, there is a lot of vulnerabilities. Every software has vulnerabilities. Okay, that's why you keep getting these Windows updates again and again and again. Okay, so like if you see here, there are different like maybe ActiveX control had this, that this allows an attacker to execute arbitrary command via shell execute method. So if you look at this CVID, okay, it's like a unique ID for each of these vulnerabilities. Okay, it tells you in detail like which Windows versions have it, and there are many different softwares having different vulnerabilities. This is discussed. Vulnerabilities are discussed in way much more detail, and if you go ahead with the EC Council CEH course or things like that. But point here is like for vulnerability protection, okay, you can have directly the security profile. So it's simple. You go again to the object, okay, and you can apply. You can clone this if you want to modify. Okay. Now see here there is these options of modifying these things. But until or unless you understand CVE ID, vendor ID, and a lot of these other stuff, you won't be able to understand configuration of this. Okay, and frankly, I have not even like gone through much of it. Okay, for people who have not gone through in detail of vulnerability protection or studying this in detail, Palo Alto again recommends just apply the default profile. For most of the things, it will protect you. Okay. Let's discuss file blocking tomorrow. The process will be similar. Again, like we go here in the objects, we apply the file blocking profile and then mention it. Okay. In the policy. Okay. So see you guys tomorrow. If you have any doubts, you can let me know now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll end the meeting.
Thank you.